Adam here with the 43rd Greater Brisbane update for 2025. This week we've got everything from changes to the face of Brisbane City to Christmas events announced, homeless wins and challenges, public transport proposals, a pretty radical reconsideration of zoning in Moreton Bay, and a lot more. It's probably coming to you a little late as I had to squeeze so much into it. This video is sponsored by YB Painting Services and Wise and Silent Travel Insurance, two local businesses that have an exclusive discount for viewers of the Brisbane channel, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's jump into the updates. Firstly, the release of a report on Brisbane's inner city area gives insight into how the city will change in the coming years, as well as one significant challenge. The Committee for Brisbane's Brisbane Inner City Vitality Report breaks down the situation and change over time of 7 areas from Woolloongabba up to the newly included Olympic precinct, which includes the areas that will house the Olympic Stadium and Athletes Village in 2032. The addition of that area that includes Kelvin Grove, Hurston and the Showgrounds was due to the committee's prediction that growth and transformation of that area was inevitable. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on how that area changes in the coming years here on the Brisbane channel. There's far too much information in the report to even summarise here, with it looking at changes across the education, health, commercial office, retail, arts and culture, tourism and hospitality, and residential sectors. Definitely something to add to the list of midweek videos to make that is already getting a little bit backed up, but I will get to this as we can learn a lot about how our city is changing through the analysis. One thing I will mention this time though is that the report showed that the total number of hotel rooms in the inner city grew by 834 from 2021 until now, and that there are over 3,500 more currently under construction. However, the head of the Brisbane Economic Development Agency says that we'll need 16,000 rooms to handle visitors for the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2032. In order to achieve that, we'd need to build 66 hotel rooms each month until the Games begin. The shortage of rooms is already affecting the city without even bringing the Games into the picture, with Brisbane hotel room rates rising by 40% in the last year. The average price for a hotel room in July this year was just under $275, and it's been said that for building the number of rooms we need for the Games to be financially viable for developers, room rates may need to increase in peak times to as much as $700 a night. Fun times! While we're talking development, there's no denying that medium and high-density housing, as well as mixed-use developments, have a massive impact not only on how the city looks, but also how it functions. And among the ones recently submitted for approval, given the green light, or opening up to potential buyers, are a couple that are quite interesting. The first one is on Cordelia Street in South Brisbane, which will have 138 1-, 2- and 3-bedroom apartments with prices starting at $655,000, which is over $100,000 lower than the median unit price in Greater Brisbane. 25 of the apartments are below the $1 million mark, and the developers are reserving all 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom 1-bathroom apartments for local owner-occupiers and first home buyers. They had over 2,000 expressions of interest before a pre-release to that group last month. Residents of the tower will have access to over 1,400 square metres of rooftop amenities, including a steam room, sauna, hot and cold plunge pools, a heated pool, cabanas, private barbecues, a gym, dining room and yoga studio. In West End, a 6-tower mixed-use residential precinct has been proposed by the River, with over 1,100 residences and public parkland planned. There'll also be a series of sky bridges linking between podium levels between the towers. Perfect for the inevitable floods. The architects say the design is intended to facilitate natural ventilation and reduce heat build-up at street level. Other proposals include twin 30-storey towers on Manning Street and a 37-storey tower on the corner of Montague Road and Bouquet Street, both in South Brisbane. Whether you're living in an apartment or a standalone house, your home is your castle, and if you want it to really shine, you may want to get in touch with one of the sponsors of this video, YB Painting Services. They recently won first or second place in 5 different categories of the Master Painters Australia Queensland Awards, and when you see their professionalism and the quality of their work, it's no surprise. With fixed pricing and a 5-year warranty on all their work, you can be sure there'll be no unpleasant surprises. Claim your 10% discount by scanning this QR code or the link in the video description. As we draw closer to the end of the year, Greater Brisbane's LGAs are announcing their Christmas programs. This week, Brisbane City Council launched their program, including the Enchanted Garden at Roma Street Parkland. If you're following the Brisbane Channel's Instagram, you would have seen that tickets went on sale last Friday. We've got tickets for opening day, so expect a video of that towards the end of this month. The solar-powered Christmas tree in King George Square will be lit on the 28th of this month, and Mace Robertson's Tiny Christmas Doors will return to the city from the 1st of December. There's a heap of other things happening across the city, including the Lord Mayor's Christmas carols, daily performances, and also Sono Lumo returns to Queen's Wharf. So if you're a cyclist or you scoot or skate, prepare for route disruption again. In the Redlands, your Christmas festivities will kick off with the lighting of the Christmas tree at Darbee Bay Harbour Park on the 28th. Ipswich hasn't released its 2025 Christmas calendar yet, and all I could find for Logan is the Christmas carols, which will be held on December 6th. They'll be hosted by Rob Mills and Paulini. Moreton Bay also didn't have any council-run events when I checked, but you can find a heap of carols and other events by visiting whatsonmoretonbay.com. I've put links to a range of event listings for all 5 LGAs in the video description. For Brisbane, after announcing the Christmas program, the Lord Mayor was asked about progress replacing the footpath on the other side of the Story Bridge, and his answer gave us a bit of a better clue as to when we can expect both sides to be open again.
Can I ask you a quick question? Is there going to be an early Christmas present for Brisbane residents with the second footpath of the Story Bridge opening before December 25?
Yeah, look, we're working really hard to make sure that not only is the second Story Bridge footpath open before the end of the year, but I think it'll be open before the end of this month. And so we're working really hard. As soon as we've locked in a date, we'll let you know, but it's progressing ahead of schedule.
Okay.
If you find these updates helpful, giving the video a thumbs up helps tell YouTube to spread the video further, and you can also say thanks by buying me a coffee. A special thanks to people who have set up monthly support of the channel on Buy Me a Coffee, and also the people who have become channel members. You help keep this channel running, and I appreciate each and every one of you. For those wishing for improvements to the Gateway Motorway and Bruce Highway, there's been some progress on that front. Almost $2 billion of federal and state-funded upgrades include providing additional lanes on the Gateway Motorway, improving the motorway curve at Bracken Ridge, and upgrades to the Bruce Highway interchange with Gateway Motorway and Gympie Arterial Road. This week, the state government announced a design and construct contract had been awarded, paving the way for the works to progress. It's expected that traffic volume through the corridor will rise by around 50% by 2041. While we're talking about getting around Greater Brisbane, it's probably worth mentioning the lack of updates on extension of Brisbane's metro bus network. In Brisbane City Council's timeline, business cases for expansion of the metro bus network to Castledine, Springwood, Capalaba and the airport are scheduled for 2025 and beyond. That and beyond gives us little information on when we could expect to see some movement. I'll be reaching out to Brisbane City Council this coming week to see if I can get some clearer information, but there are some who are pushing for action on this. The Council's opposition have said that Council still hasn't started the business cases for metro expansion 8 months after federal funding was approved, and just this week South East Queensland Transport Association, or SECTA, has put out a list of suggestions for expansion of Brisbane's busway network, with many parts aligning with the current suggested metro bus extensions, but also proposing the state government negotiate with the University of Queensland to continue the busway that currently terminates at UQ, extending it all the way to Indooroopilly Shopping Centre. They say that having a bridge that connects a single stop to the busway is absurd. And if you don't know much about what they're talking about, I suggest you check out this video on a different channel, which dives a little deeper into the situation. Save it in a new tab for later, but if you're watching on TV, I'll link it at the end of this video as well. Here's SECTA's proposals for Castledine Metro buses, Indooroopilly Metro buses, and Capalaba Metro buses. Now a major update for South East Queensland Wildlife. A $1.2 million eDNA monitoring program for native aquatic species, including platypus, will launch across 11 South East Queensland Council areas. Starting up in Brisbane, Logan, Ipswich and Moreton Bay, it will use innovative environmental DNA, or eDNA, to collect data on native species including platypuses, ricali, freshwater turtles, lungfish, frogs and endangered Mary River cod. Wildlife Queensland Platypus Officer Dr. Tamiel Brunt says eDNA is revolutionising how we monitor aquatic life. By analysing water samples for traces of DNA, we can detect hundreds of species and gain a comprehensive picture of life beneath the surface. But it's not an entirely new thing. Ipswich City Council has been using eDNA to monitor its platypus populations and aquatic environment for the last decade. The wider effort announced this week is part of a plan to restore habitat, enhance biodiversity, and improve water security across 16,000 kilometres of rivers and streams across southeast Queensland. While we're on wildlife, the discovery of a dead echidna in Logan has sparked Australia's first investigation of the impact of fire ants on native species such as echidnas and koalas. Despite the invasive species having been on our shores for the last 25 years or so, the research will be a nation first. Up until now, we've been relying on data from the US. The study will look at how fire ants affect native animals' behaviour, stress levels and populations. The research is led by UQ's Dr. Kate Dutton-Register, but also supported by Griffith University, the University of Adelaide, the Invasive Species Council, and the Brisbane, Logan and Ipswich City Councils. Speaking of significant research projects, distinguished Professor Lydia Moravska at the Queensland University of Technology here in Brisbane has been awarded the 2025 Prime Minister's Prize for Science. The aerosol physicist disputed the WHO's claims that COVID-19 was not airborne, leading a team of 200 international scientists to prove the fact that it could, in fact, be transmitted through the air. This led to changes to infection control strategies globally. Moving to updates specific to each council area, we'll start in Brisbane, where the charity Emmanuel City Mission opened their first ever night sanctuary, a safe place for people who would otherwise be sleeping rough. It was helped by the donations of generous Brisbane residents, as well as a $500,000 grant from Brisbane City Council earlier in the year. But the council's Labor opposition are pushing for the LNP Majority Council to increase its funding to support organisations that help people facing homelessness. They've launched a petition for Brisbane City Council to increase its funding for the Pathways Out of Homelessness program to $5 million per year for the next 3 years. The opposition says that the program has provided $1 million of support each year since 2019, despite the need having increased dramatically.
For the last 10 years or so, councils had a grant program of $1 million a year supporting people to transition from homelessness into accommodation. Unfortunately, this crisis has grown exponentially over the last few years, but council support has stayed stagnant. In fact, we've seen councils' advertising budget rise, we've seen councils' overseas travel budget rise, but we've seen no increase in the budget for the Pathways Out of Homelessness grant program.
I've put a link to the petition in the video description in case you want to find out more or maybe sign it. Staying in Brisbane, where 2 new district parks have been announced. One in Pollara, which will feature outdoor sports fields, a clubhouse, on-site parking and a bus drop-off and pick-up zone. The other is planned for Ellen Grove, with a modern family playground, tennis courts, picnic shelters and tables, and a clubhouse. Construction of Pollara District Sports Park is expected to start in the 2026-27 financial year, with works at Ellen Grove District Park planned to start the following financial year. If you're planning on travelling overseas, you can't really relax unless you have travel insurance, and the other sponsor of this video is not only winner of Best International Travel Insurance for Value in Finder's 2024 Travel Insurance Awards, but they're a local Brisbane company. Wise and Silent Travel Insurance won the 2024 Value Award because it costs less on average, but covers you for more. They're also the official travel insurance provider for Australian passengers on Scoot Airlines. Backed by a global insurance provider and a 24/7 medical assistance team, the rave reviews on Trustpilot confirm that you can travel with total peace of mind if you choose Wise and Silent for your next overseas trip. Click this QR code or the link in the video description to get your exclusive 10% discount on your premium. Back to the LGA specific updates, and Moreton Bay City Council has announced changes to the way they define local businesses when it comes to Aboriginal owned businesses. Instead of using LGA boundaries to define what local means, they'll instead consider any businesses of Jinibara, Kabi Kabi and Turrbal communities as local businesses. The changes mean that opportunities for Aboriginal businesses to partner with Council will be increased. Also in Moreton Bay, the state government will be delivering one of its regional reset programs that are designed to serve as an early intervention program for children and teens between the ages of 8 and 17 who are showing early signs of disengagement, antisocial or criminal behaviour. The program will be delivered by Youth in Search and will involve cultural mentoring, education, life and employment skills workshops, and adventure-based outdoor activities. Across to Ipswich, and Council have unanimously voted to adopt a permanent multicultural advisory committee. One of the Brisbane Channel's updates back in May mentioned a 6-month trial of the committee, led by Councillor Pi Augustine, and now it's become permanent. Over 20% of Ipswich residents were born overseas, so the council saw the committee as an important way to foster inclusivity, diversity and cohesion in their decision-making processes. But not everything is entirely cohesive in Ipswich. Mayor Teresa Harding posted a photo of planned road painting at the Scramble crossing at the intersection of Brisbane and Ellensborough streets in Ipswich Central, which she said would improve pedestrian safety and enhance visual appeal of the intersection. The post was met with about 700 comments, all but about 3 of which were negative. Some asked if it was an early April Fool's joke, while others questioned the safety of the design. In any case, it is going ahead, with the road to be closed for nighttime works between the 16th and 21st of November. A couple more quick updates from other Greater Brisbane LGAs. In the Redlands, local skaters and BMX riders are encouraged to have their say on what they'd like included in the design of new skate parks and BMX tracks at William Taylor Memorial Sports Field in Thornside and Cascades Park in Victoria Point. They'll be holding 4 workshops to help riders work out what features they'd like to see in the final designs. I'll put a link in the video description if you or your kids are interested in shaping the future facilities. In Logan, Council are offering Year 12 students planning to attend university in 2026 financial support for their studies. The tertiary education bursaries offer $5,000 over 3 years thanks to Logan City Council and other sponsors. Students from families with limited financial resources are encouraged to apply by December 29th. That's it for the Greater Brisbane updates, and now it's time for me to give my 2 cents, but this time it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be giving my 2 cents on any of the issues that have come up in any of the updates to this point, but something that I came to realise just this week as I was walking around Brisbane shooting footage for the Brisbane Channel. I was thinking about some of the things that we really take for granted in this city. Often we can be so focused on the negative things, focused on the things that need to improve, the traffic congestion, some of the rising cost of living, the lack of availability of rentals. We can be focused on all of these. They're definitely serious issues that we should be considering, but there's so many great things about life in Brisbane that I think we do lose sight of. We take it for granted, and some people who haven't lived outside of Brisbane may not even realise that it's not a normal thing. So I just wanted to use this, my 2 cent segment, to raise a couple of the things that I think we really take for granted in this city that make living in Brisbane a really good thing. One is the air quality. Sure, from time to time we might have backburning or bushfires that might, produce a bit of a haze and reduce the air quality. But generally, the air quality in Brisbane is really, really good. It's not a rare thing for us to see clear blue skies. That's just a normal thing to us. But having lived in China and in other countries, I can see that that's not normal everywhere. And it's something that we're really, really blessed to have. We've got really great air, and our blue skies are something that's really a special thing, even though to us it's just normal and nothing to get excited about. And another thing that was actually the thing that made me think about all of these things that we take for granted is that I was in the city on Thursday. I had all my camera gear with me, and I decided I'd walk around the Botanic Gardens and get some shots of some of the wildlife there. And so I left $10,000 worth of camera equipment and a tripod in the middle of the lawn and went maybe 20, 30 meters away to take photos of the curlews that were nesting there. And, that's actually something that you couldn't do in every city. It's something you can do in Brisbane. I had my back to my gear and I wasn't even worried. Yes, I did glance back from time to time just to make sure, but I felt quite safe that if I just, the occasional glance to make sure nobody's, looking at running off with it, that's all I really needed. But in some cities, you can't even leave something on the table at the restaurant that you're dining at without worrying that someone's going to just run by and snatch it and run off. So that's something we've got that in this city, that is actually the level of crime is really quite low. Yes, crime does happen, and there are some areas where it's more prevalent than others, but generally speaking, and especially even in the downtown area, the levels of crime are just very insignificant compared to many other parts of the world. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things that we take for granted. I know that, when I lived in China, even just getting food from different countries, the multicultural nature of things wasn't what it is here. And sure, we can say, oh yeah, but it's better in Sydney or it's better in Melbourne. It's much more multicultural than Brisbane is. Well, yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. But Brisbane itself is still quite multicultural. You can get really authentic food from all different places. Anything you want, you can probably find it. Some things may be more challenging than others, but yeah. So you probably have a whole list of things that if you really think about that are really great about Brisbane. And the more you've lived in other places, you probably have more of an idea about the things here that are actually really great. I spent the first 3 years of my life in Brisbane disliking the place and cursing it for everything it wasn't, and for, the cafes closing at 3 or 4 o'clock and not being able to get a coffee in the late afternoon.
One of the most first world problems I've ever come across.
But when I shifted my focus to looking for the things that I could appreciate about the city, and that's actually a part of why I started this channel, to force myself to get out and find those things, I actually discovered, hey, it's actually not so bad at all. And now the longer I've spent here, the more I really appreciate it for the place that it is. It's not perfect, no place is, and some places are going to be more suited to some people than others. But if you set to focusing on the things that we can really appreciate about Brisbane, you'll find that it's actually a pretty great place. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with that, or do you think, nah, it's actually, nah? Or maybe you think that Brisbane is just the best city anyway. I'd really love to know your thoughts, and especially what are the things that you think are really great about this city. That's my 2 cents for now. I did tell you that I'd link this video at the end of the video, so check that out if you haven't seen it before, because it's a pretty interesting video, and you might want to check something out here. YouTube says this is something that they recommend for you. The algorithm has looked into what you watch and said, watch this. Maybe watch that as well. See ya.